we are going to begin our class with this very thought which has been proposed by Ebbinghaus. So, has any one of you heard about this name, Ebbinghaus? Anybody?
No, ma'am, it is new to me.
Right? Okay, so some of you know about Ebbinghaus already, but for those who
Common
don't,
Ebbinghaus who discovered the like forgetting curve, like yeah,
yes,
the
yes,
concept of forgetting and
yes,
trace decay theory.
yeah, also trace decay. Yes, very well done, Ishika. Yes, yes, Bhuvanesh. So, Ebbinghaus is majorly known for his research work in terms of memory and forgetting, right? So, he gave a lot of insight into the memory and forgetting. We are not going to get into depth of that right now, but he basically wrote this one this one quote, which is psychology has a long past but a very short history. Why did he say so? Now we know that psychology has a long lost origin. Like there are a lot of Greek philosophers, there are a lot of philosophers who have been there in the before Christ arena at itself, and they have spoke a lot about different psychological aspects. They have spoke about emotions, they have spoke about cognition and a lot of the aspects, but it has not been documented. That's why it has a very long past, but a very short history which is documented. And from what we recognize as psychology today, it began as a separate discipline, or it began as a separate field altogether when William Wundt started or set up this first experimental psychology laboratory in the University of Leipzig, Germany, in the year 1879. So now we are going to read about a lot about the philosophers who were there even in the before Christ era, and the main psychological laboratory, the beginning, or the the founding terms were just there in these like year 1879, which is quite late. That's why Ebbinghaus has written it very clearly that it has a very short documented history, and even the lab was set up very very late. But William Wundt has devoted a lot of his life, a lot of his experimentation in terms of the development of psychology. Even the first school of psychology that we will learn not today but in later class, it was established on the principles of Wundt, right? And he inspired a lot of other people to pursue psychology. He also did a lot of experiment in terms of metaphysics, sensation and all. But this was a main prominent year for us psychologists, because this is the time when psychology was separated from philosophy. Initially there was just philosophy. There used to be a lot of philosophical aspects, there were a lot of philosophical thinkers, and we used to read what we know as psychology today in terms of that only, but that was just a part of it. But after this, it was segregated, it was separated, and now we read it as a whole different aspect, whole different discipline altogether, right? So, we are going to begin with the origin of psychology, how it began, where it was, who were the thinkers, what are the main thoughts, what are the main approaches that we still use till now. So, we are going to begin with the pre scientific era, where there were very less methodology or experimentation which were being done. So there were very less methodology or no methodology or experimentation which was there to begin with. So people started talking about metaphysics. What is metaphysics? Metaphysics is basically a study where we know about the nature of reality, the nature of truth. Now we oftenly see people or philosophers talk a lot about life, what is life, what is real, what is not real, what you should focus upon, what you should not focus upon, right? So from the very early time, people started to question about what is the world made of, what is the ultimate reality of the world that we are living in, right? So metaphysics is a study, or it is a like whole discipline where we study about the ontology, epistemology, we will get onto these words, of nature. What is truth? Now, beginning with ontology. Ontology basically deals with the question of what is real, what is reality. So there are a lot of philosophical thinkers who started working on that aspect, and they basically talked about perception to begin with the true and apparent reality. Let me add a slide, please. So we must all the slide is being inserted. So we all know that when we talk about reality, there is one reality which exists in front of us. For example, you all are able to see this particular slide which is being flashed in front of you all, right? But there is another reality as well, which lies in your perception. For example, a lot of you might have read about this metaphysics initially also, right? Now you are perceiving that reality, or maybe some of you might be accommodating the knowledge that you are getting right now to the previous knowledge that you have about the field of psychology itself. So the philosophers talked about two types of reality: true reality and apparent reality. True reality has a physical aspect to it. For example, there is this ball which is there. But apparent reality is basically the perception of reality. So if there is a person who is standing there who is observing this particular ball, they might say that the ball is red, it is round in shape, or like maybe it has a smooth texture, so on and so forth. So the true reality, how it actually is in the nature, is known as noumenon. But when we perceive about that reality, when we use our subjective experience of that reality, then it becomes a phenomenon. We have read a lot about this term, that this is a phenomena, it is very prevalent in nature, right? So this is what phenomena is. Phenomena is your subjective perception or your subjective experience of what deems true in the nature. So initially, when people started talking about what is the nature of truth, why are we studying it, what is the reality, so philosophers identified or distinguished between these two terms, noumenon and phenomenon, which basically lays our foundation of how we study. In psychology, we talk a lot about subjectivity, right? We talk that there are different kind of people, there are different kind of clients who visit you, right? And they all have a different perception. A very clear example of it can be understood by this particular figure also. Someone who is looking at from their own endpoint, from their own perception, they say that these are 4 sticks, and someone is saying that no, there are just 3. So it all depends upon the perception of the human being, right? And it all lies eventually into the phenomena. And here in psychology, we are talking a lot about the psychological aspect. So phenomena is of great interest to us, and we as psychologists need to focus upon the actually noumenon which was actually present. What is the truth? We see that it is an illusion, and now this is the true reality, that it is an illusion, but for them this is their personal reality. and for this person it is their personal reality or their personal perception of reality which was there, right? From there comes the idea of materialism versus idealism. Now these are very like the things that we are going to discuss from now onwards. They are the basic approach, or there are basic contradictions which exist in the study. There are different people who believe like who have a different perception. Like there are people who believe that the earth is round, there are people who believe that the earth is flat, right? So we as psychologists need to know both of their perception, the perception of both of the worlds. So there are few people who believe in the materialism philosophy, and there are few people who believe in the idealism philosophy. Let us read about both of them. So we have learned that what is real and what is not real. Now we did know how to read these things. So materialists, the people who believe in materialism, they believe that the matter comes first, right? So they believe more into the tangible aspect of things. So for this person, a materialist would believe in the physical existence, and then they would believe in the action or the experience later on. So for a materialistic person, not a materialistic person as we read nowadays that oh they are just all about money and all. No, not that materialism. They believe in the tangible or the physical aspect of the reality. They believe that when we see these tangible aspect, these physical aspect, then its action create the concept of our idea. So when this person looked at the ball, it created an action in terms of their consciousness. Now the person started to get into this idea that okay, the ball was red, the ball was round, the ball was smooth. So materialism believed that firstly there would be a tangible reality, a matter, and which would lead on to a idea or a consciousness. Now according to materialists, the word would be objective. Objective means whatever idea of reality that we have, it will be objective or it will be same for all. It can be generalized for everybody who is there. So all of us who will be looking at this ball would be able to relate with this. Okay, the ball is red in color, the ball is round, the ball is smooth. And they believe in terms of the subjective consciousness only. They believe that the reality will remain the same. The reality is same. What makes it different is the subjective consciousness or the... So for example, this person was looking at this ball which was red, round and smooth. The reality remains the same, but there was one person who knows how to play with the ball. They know the functions of the ball, they know how to play, maybe like they play cricket or something, or maybe there is someone, the ball just hit them on the face. They would not say that the ball is smooth, they would say that oh it hit me hard, right? So according to materialist, the reality is same, the word is same, the word is objective, but what makes it different for us is our reflections of actions, or whatever actions that we indulge into. So for example, there was a person who used to play cricket. For them the ball is of great importance. The ball is like, there are different types of balls, and they have like, there are different types of the texture, leather ball, like plastic ball, right? So their reflection of the actions make the subjective consciousness. On the other hand, idealists, or the people who believe in the philosophy of idealism, believe that the idea would come first and then the reality would be there. So for example, invention of computers. So for example, person, like the idea came first and then their idea shaped the reality. They thought about how to make the functions work, what to do and everything, right? Also they believe that the world that we are living in is very subjective. How? So for example, we are using this online method to learn. Now there would be different causes of you attending the classes. Yesterday we discussed a lot about it. What is your expectation out of the class? Why are you there in the class? So there were multiple causes. Like for example, people who want to appear for net. There was someone who wanted exposure. There were few people who wanted to connect with people. But all of this basically led to one thing. We all sitting here learning about something, right? So for them, idea is the main ground. Idea will come first, then the reality would shape itself, and the world itself is subjective. So let me add another slide. What we have learned till now: for a person who believes in the philosophy of materialist, action will come later. The word is objective, which means the word is same for us, but what makes it different for us is the reflection of actions. But for an idealist, the idea would be the first thing, and then our reality would be there, and they believe that the word is also subjective and the reflection of the word would be subjective itself. So we have learnt about one approach or one idea of people. We see that there are different people around us who have different ideology, and it is one such ideology. Then we have empiricism versus rationalization, rationalism. These are both two philosophies itself. So people who believe in empiricism, they believe that the knowledge is based on the experience and experimentation. So someone who was looking at the ball, they trusted their experience, they trusted their senses. So the knowledge would come from the 5 senses that we have, or the experimentation that we will make. Then it is an experimental science is very, very important. Experimental science has all its basis in the empiricism. Now in terms of the rationalism, it is totally based upon reason or logic. Why we are discussing about these terms, empiricism or rationalism? Because later on we will learn about different philosophers, and we will just write, or we will just say one word, that they were a rationalist or they were an empiricist. So that's why we need to know in detail about what both of these terms means. So people who are empiricist, they believe that we need to experience whatever knowledge we have. We need to experience our reality. Then only we will accumulate knowledge. But the people who are rationalists, they believe that if we will use our logic, if we will use deduction, inductive or deductive methods, we will reach to the knowledge. Later on in psychology, this is the last, now we are discussing the last kind of contradiction or approach. So people believe in the mind body, like there is a problem of mind and body. There are few people who believe that mind and body are one entity. There are few people who believe that mind and body are two separate entities, right? So which leads to the differentiation or distinction between monism and dualism. So people who are monist, as the name suggests, mono, they will just believe that one single entity exists. And people who believe in dualism, they will believe that there are two entities which exist, right? There are different types of monism and dualism that we will discuss. As we have read about materialism, materialist people believed in the matter, right, as we learned just now. So they would just say that the brain or the body exists. Then people who are idealist, they believe in the ideas. They believe that the ideas will come first. So they will believe in the existence of mind, only mind. And people who are neutral monist, Neutral monists are majorly those two people who wanted to distinguish between body and mind, but they were not able to. So they later on set upon this own idea that okay, body and mind are one soul. So body and mind are one. That is the belief of neutral monist. So we have three type of monism. Monism is basically existence of one single entity. We have materialist who believe that only body exists, only the physical or the tangible aspect exists. Then the people who are idealist believe that the mind is the only thing which exists, and there are neutral monists who believe that both mind and body are one single entity. Then we have dualism, which believes in the two identities. So Cartesian dualism or normal dualism, which is, so they believe that both body and mind exist. But there are other kind of dualists as well who believe in the interactionism. So they say that body and mind both exist, but they interact with each other, right? And one such person who believed in this was Rene Descartes, who was a interactionist. He is one of a very important person who wrote about the duality, the existence of both mind and body, and how they interact with each other. So this figure that you can see here is the illustration of the body and mind, which was given by Rene Descartes. We'll get on this later. Firstly, learn a little about Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes was a French philosopher. He's also known as the father of modern philosophy. He had a lot of interest to see how our body and mind are connected. But the terms or whatever he experimented at that time was proved wrong at later stages. So let us begin with his theory. He believed that soul and mind are there and they are separated also, but he believed in their interaction, and he believed that both our mind and the body communicated with each other. He believed that our mind and body has two different aspects attached to it. There is a physical existence. We learned about true reality and apparent reality. It is very much similar to that. So he believed that we have a physical substance and then we have a mental substance. Physical substance are those substances which exist in space. For example, this chair, this table, the pen, the laptop or the mobile screen that you are looking at right now. But then there are few substances which are mental in nature, which can just be experienced. For example, thought. For example, music, smell. There is no physical aspect to it, but we just can experience this feeling, knowledge, intention, etc. Right? And he wrote it in French like res extensa and res cognitas. Like, we don't need to learn about that. We just need to know that there are two substances which exist. And how do we learn about both of them? How do we contact both of them? So he said there is a point of contact between them, which is a pineal gland. So our mental states, our mental substance contacts or communicate or interacts with the body through this one structure which is located in the brain, pineal gland. But at that time when he was researching, he called it conarium. Okay? But we know that pineal gland basically elicits or secretes melatonin, which is responsible for sleep. So his study was deemed wrong at later stages. But he believed that there are animal spirits between all of us. Okay? So he said that in the body or in the nerves that are there are hollow tubes which follow through the muscles, which cause this animal spirit to move. So we know that there are CSF or cerebrospinal fluid which is there in our body. He called it as animal spirits altogether. And then he said there is an animal arc or animal reflex. Okay? So it is basically a cycle in which both of these would exist. So now let us look at his illustration. So he says that there is a physical substance. He basically researched it with a block of wax. So he said there is a physical substance and then there is a experience or a knowledge which is attached to it. So our animal spirit would flow through these bodies, these tubes which are there inserted in the muscles of our body, and they interact via this one gland which is there, pineal gland. Right? It was such a, like, now if we think about it, it is not such a great study to begin with, and the pineal gland is responsible for like a hormone or a neurotransmitter, melatonin, which is responsible for sleep. But at that time this research was groundbreaking. This was one of the research which talked a lot in terms of the experimentation, which talked a lot in terms of how our body and mind interact and how they communicate with each other. So it is one of the important theories, and it is majorly asked in a lot of entrance exams also, in the master's entrance exams also, and in the net also. So he called pineal gland to be conarium and the cerebrospinal fluid that we have to be animal spirit. And that's how he defined the reflex arc or the animal arc or the reflex that we all indulged in. We know what is reflex. When we touch something, we like remove our hand. Like if it is hot, then we just remove our hand immediately or instinctively. So that was about René Descartes, his theory, his belief about mind and body and how both our mind and body interact. Right? So it was a part of our monist and dualist parody or our monist and dualist contradiction. Is there any query or any doubt which is related to this? Kindly ask, and then we would begin. Then we would begin with the next philosopher. Okay. Yes, Shruti.
Ma'am, actually, I am confused about first part.
The
So let
conarium.
me. Yeah.
Okay, okay, let me understand. Okay, Amanpreet is saying the CSF part. Okay, let me repeat this. So, I am inserting a separate paper. Let's understand it on that. So, Rene Descartes believed that we have mind and body and they both interact with each other. He said that they both interact with the help of this structure in brain which is pineal gland, which he called conorium. Okay, because he is French, so his language is also different. We need to understand that, right? So they both interact with the help of this small structure which is there in brain. That is what he said. And he said that our human body has hollow tubes which connect to the muscle, which has animal spirit in us. So all of us have some kind of soul in us, animal spirit in us. That is what René Descartes believed, and they move through these hollow structure, these hollow tubes that are there. ठीक है, जैसे हमारी nerves, like we have nerves, the blood flows through the nerves. So he believed that we have a tube like structure which connects all of our muscle, and through those muscles, through those holes or through those tubes, animal spirit flows in all of our body. Is it understandable right now?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically he said that our animal spirit, our soul or our mind interacts with the physical substance which is there through these part of the hollow tubes which are there in the body, and pineal gland is responsible for their interaction, because he talked about a physical substance like a physical substance, and he talked about a mental substance. So pineal gland is responsible through that. And with the help of both of these, we are able to indulge in animal arc or reflex action that we talk about today. Okay? So for example, there is a physical substance, there is a hot pot which is there, and then pain is a sensation that can be felt, right? So this physical substance which he thought called as a body, like we can say that our body, it is sensing the pain. Today whatever we learn is very different than this, but we, like, this is his theory, it was there in a very early era, so we need to understand that it might not make sense in the today's world, but this is his theory. So he said that this physical substance interacted with this mental substance with the help of this pineal gland or conorium. Okay, is it clear now? Like, what is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
about the CSF part that Amanpreet asked. So CSF is basically, let me add one more slide. CSF is cerebrospinal fluid, which is there in our body. So for example, this is our skull. Okay, whatever, like, yeah, whatever. So this is our skull and it is our brain. So like, it's not just there, the brain is not just there sitting in our brain. We have a fluid which is there in our body, which is cerebrospinal fluid, right? So he called it to be animal spirit. So he called pineal gland as conorium and cerebrospinal fluid as animal spirit. Right? Is it understandable now? Amanpreet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I think it's almost 10 and we would begin with the next philosopher in the next class.